The darkness that had suffocated the 10 regions for a year did not end with a sunrise. It ended with a flash. In the center of Sector 7, floating above the ruins of the Grand Plaza, a singularity of light appeared. It wasn't the harsh, scorching radiation of the sun that had burned them in 77. This light was soft, prismatic, and deeply seductive. It bathed the blackened skyscrapers in a gold hue, making the destruction look like art. Regent Kale stood on his balcony. He was a husk of a man, skeletal after a year of famine and darkness. His sores were open wounds. His tongue was chewed raw. But as the light touched him, the pain stopped. It didn't heal him. The rot remained, but the sensation of agony vanished, replaced by a flood of dopamine and serotonin so intense his knees buckled. "He is here," Kale wept, tears of ecstasy streaming down his scarred face. "The Ascended One." The screens that had been dead for 12 months flickered to life. The AI grid rebooted, not with code, but with a strange, organic hum. On every screen, from the wrist comms of the starving citizens to the wall-sized monitors in the plaza, the face appeared. He looked like the paintings in the old museums, but perfected. Eyes of compassionate fire, robes of woven starlight. He did not speak with words. He spoke with thoughts, bypassing the ears and vibrating directly in the mind. "My children," the voice echoed in Kale's skull. "The purification is complete. You have suffered the dark night of the soul. Now I return to bring the dawn." In the Vatican, the doors of the basilica burst open. The pontiff, the man the world called the supreme moral authority, the Antichrist, stumbled out into the square. He fell to his knees before the floating apparition. Beside him stood Aurelius, the charismatic leader and false prophet. Aurelius raised his hands, calling down fire from the sky, not to burn, but to dazzle. Pyrotechnic displays of energy danced around the Vatican. "Behold!" Aurelius shouted, his voice amplified to the ends of the earth. "The Christ has returned, not to judge, but to integrate. He has come to merge heaven and earth." The being descended. He touched the ground. Where his feet stepped, flowers bloomed instantly from the concrete, genetically accelerated, impossible flora. He approached a row of the sick, people rotting from the sores of the first plague. He waved his hand. They stood up. They danced. They laughed. The sores were still there, visible and oozing, but the people no longer cared. They were trapped in a euphoric delusion, a strong delusion that made them believe the lie. "I have healed your pain," the being projected, "but I cannot heal the earth, not yet." The euphoria in the crowd dampened slightly. A collective anxiety rippled through the 10 regions. "There is a blockage," the being said, his face twisting into a mask of tragic sorrow. "A virus in the collective consciousness, the fundamentalists, the haters in the wilderness." The screens shifted. They showed satellite imagery of the Canyon of Refuge. It showed the believers, healthy, clean, fed, drinking clear water. "Look at them," the being whispered. "They hoard the resources. They stole the rain. They cursed the sun to burn you. They summoned the darkness. As long as they breathe, the earth cannot ascend to the 5th dimension." A roar went up from the crowd. It wasn't human. It was the sound of millions of demons speaking through millions of broken throats. "Gather," the being commanded. "Gather at Megiddo. We will march on their camp. We will excise the cancer. And then, paradise." In the Canyon of Refuge, the mood was tense but calm. Paul stood on the ridge with Leo, looking through a high-powered telescope. They could see the convoys moving in the distance. The kings of the East, the armies of the Asian regions, were crossing the dried-up bed of the Euphrates, joining forces with the European and American battalions. "They say he's Jesus," Leo whispered, watching the news feed on his scavenged datapad. "Paul, He looks like Jesus. He acts like Jesus. He's doing miracles." "He is a liar," Paul said firmly, "and the father of it." He turned to the group of refugees gathered behind him. Some of them looked terrified. A few were wavering, looking at the glowing figure on the screen with longing. "Listen to me," Paul shouted. Matthew 24:26, "Wherefore if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not." "But he stopped the pain," a woman cried out. "My sister is in the city. She messaged me. She says she doesn't hurt anymore." "He didn't heal her." Sarah stepped forward, her voice fierce. "He anesthetized her. He's leading them to the slaughterhouse with a smile." Paul pointed to the east. "When the true king comes," Paul said, "he won't need a satellite feed. He won't need the Pope to endorse him. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." "Every eye shall see him," Leo quoted, "not just the people with neurolinks." "Exactly," Paul said. "Do not be deceived. This is the final test, the lying wonder." 6 months passed. The 6th year bled into the 7th. The armies gathered. It was the largest military force in human history. The iron of the machines mixed with the clay of the possessed humanity. Billions of credits, trillions of watts of energy, all focused on one goal: killing the remnant. They surrounded the wilderness. Paul sat in the entrance of the cave. The manna had been double portioned that morning. The spring was overflowing. "It's time," Paul said to Sarah. "Are you afraid?" she asked. She held his hand. Her grip was strong. They had aged in these 7 years, but they were strong. They were warriors. "I'm ready to go home," Paul said. "Look," Leo pointed. Below them, in the Valley of Armageddon, the false Messiah was levitating. He glowed with a pulsating, hypnotic rhythm. He raised a sword of pure energy. "Destroy them!" The command ripped through the psychic plane. "Reclaim your future!" The tanks swiveled their turrets. The sonic cannons charged. The ground shook as the infantry began the ascent up the mountain paths. "They're coming!" a sentry yelled. Paul stood up. He walked to the edge of the cliff. He didn't raise a weapon. He raised his head. "Look up!" Paul shouted to the camp. "Don't look at the beast! Look up! Your redemption is here!" The sky above the canyon began to tear. It wasn't the atmospheric shield failing this time. It was the fabric of reality unzipping. A white horse broke the barrier of the dimension. And then, the true silence fell. The false Messiah looked up, and for the first time, his face showed fear.